This tutorial shows you how to take a logo graphic created in Adobe Illustrator and animate it in Adobe After Effects so that each letter appears one at a time, just as you see here. To follow along with what I'm doing, save the assets that accompany this tutorial to your Creative Cloud account. First, let's briefly look at this graphic in Illustrator. It has 3 layers: text, pink mark, and background. I just want to export the graphic layer called pink mark because we are going to recreate the text in After Effects in order to animate it. To do this, I will use the Libraries panel. If you do not see the Libraries panel in Illustrator, open it by choosing Window, Libraries. If you don't see anything in your Libraries panel, sign in with your Adobe ID. All you have to do is drag the pink mark to the panel. Now I will rename it Pink Mark. In After Effects, you can drag the pink mark from the Libraries panel to the Project panel, and now you're ready to use it. Of course, you can also save the graphic and import it as an asset into After Effects. If you open the sample file that accompanies this tutorial, you'll see the graphic has already been imported for you. If you see this dialog box, don't worry. It just means you don't have the font installed that the project uses. Just click OK and continue to use the project. Let's create a new composition. Click on Composition, New Composition, and a new panel opens. Choose the preset named HDTV 1080 29.97. This will give you a frame size of 1920 pixels by 1080 pixels and a frame rate of 29.97 frames per second. Also notice that the background is set to black. This is merely for our convenience. The color black will show instead of a transparency grid, but regardless of the color shown here, the background will be transparent. Name your composition and click OK. To add the pink mark graphic to the timeline, just drag it from the Project panel. By the way, if you want to replace this graphic for any other, just select it and drag the new graphic from the Project panel to the timeline as you press and hold the Alt key on Windows or the Option key on the Mac. This will allow you to replace the layer that is already in the timeline, keeping all of the properties that you may have changed in the replaced layer. I'll choose Undo so I can get back to where I was. You can resize this graphic by clicking on it with the Selection tool and dragging the control points to resize. If you are using a vector graphic and you decide to resize the graphic to make it larger, please click on the checkbox here under this icon. This will help keep the graphic crisp. I'll choose Undo so I can get back to where I was. Click on the gray part of the timeline to deselect any layers that you may have had selected and select the Rectangle tool. Draw a rectangle that covers the entire pink mark or whatever artwork you are using. You can name this rectangle layer Mask Layer. To rename any layer in After Effects, select it and then press the Enter or Return key and type the new name. Press the letter P. This will show you the position properties of this new layer. Change the tool back to the Selection tool and in the Comp panel, click on the rectangle layer to select it and drag it to the left so that it no longer covers the pink mark. Move the playhead all the way to the left in the timeline. These numbers here will read 0. Now click on the stopwatch to the left of the word position. This adds a keyframe that will mark the position of the layer. Move the playhead to the right until this number here reads 0100. This means that the playhead is at the 1 second mark. Click on the rectangle and move it to the right to cover the pink mark. To constrain the movement of this rectangle to horizontal only, press the Shift key after you start moving the rectangle. If you press the Shift key before you start moving the rectangle, you won't be able to move it. Click on this button at the bottom of the timeline. It says Switches and Modes. Choose from the drop-down menu Alpha Matte Mask Layer. This will let the rectangle act as a mask. Preview your animation by pressing the spacebar. Move the playhead to the 1 second mark. You can do so by typing 100 here. Select the Type tool from the Tools panel and single-click in the Comp panel and type. You can type any text you want. After you're done typing your text, you can exit the type by using the shortcut Command-Return on the Mac or Control-Enter on Windows. You can also reposition the text by choosing the Selection tool and moving the text with it. If you'd like to change any of the qualities of the text, you can double-click anywhere on the layer name in the timeline, and that will select all of the text in the layer. Now go to the Character panel on the right-hand side of the screen. If you don't see the Character panel, choose the Window menu and then choose Character. In this panel, you'll be able to change font, font size, style, and color. You can also change some of the other properties of the text. If you type a longer word than what I have in here, you can resize the pink mark to your liking or replace it with a different graphic. Expand this layer by clicking on the disclosure triangle here to the left of the layer name. Click on the menu to the right of the word Animate and choose Position. Change the value for the white position of the animator so the text is lower than the pink mark. Expand the range selector and click on the stopwatch to the left of the word Start. Just like before, this sets a keyframe. Move the playhead to the right to the 2-second mark and change the value of Start in the range selector to 100. What happens is that the range selector will determine which characters are affected by the animator. So when we animate the start value, we take the animator changes off of the characters and the text goes back to its original position. Choose the rectangle tool and draw a rectangle that will keep all of the text inside of it. This creates a mask that will allow the characters to be visible only on the inside of the mask. Move the playhead to the right to the 3-second mark and click on this icon here in the keyframe navigator of the range selector. This will create another keyframe that will hold the text in place. Now, move the playhead to the right to the 4-second mark and change the value of Start back to 0. Click on this icon for the keyframe navigator of the rectangle. This will create a keyframe that will hold the position of the rectangle on top of the pink mark. Move the playhead to the right to the 5-second mark and move the rectangle to the right of the pink mark until it no longer covers it. Play your animation by pressing the spacebar. To customize the timing of the keyframes, change their position in the timeline. You can move them close together to make the animation faster or further apart to make the animation longer. And that's how you can create a simple logo animation. Go ahead and experiment with your own graphics and your own settings.